What's going on, everybody? This is John Jake Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the NCSL Dynasty here on NCAA 14 and featuring college football revamp as well. We are starting to reach that halfway point in the regular season, and already we've seen some nail biters, we've seen the blowouts, we have seen just in general some great football games over the course of this season, and we're going to look to keep that going as we get into week number 5, which means for many teams around the country, they'll either be jumping into conference play here today or maybe even jumping into their second conference game. But a lot of conference action, but a healthy number of non-conference games. So what we're going to do is we're going to work ourselves around the country because there's a lot of good games going on here today. We have 16 nationally televised games, quite a few rivalry games as well for your attention as well. So hope you guys are excited for it, and I hope you guys are ready for this episode. If you are, I need you guys to do me a massive favor. Hit that like button, and then also hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. Let's not wait any longer, and let's go ahead and jump right into this thing. So we'll go ahead and get the action officially underway, and actually the first game that we have in this episode is we have Kansas taking on the number 16 ranked Auburn Tigers. We'll see what this Auburn Tigers team can do as they are already up 13-0, but they're really looking to open up that can though, as Auburn is on yet another drive here once more, really looking to blow Kansas out of the building, and it looks like it's going to be very close for them to actually do that. Needless to say, Auburn looks like they could be a team that could have very well been in control of this entire game. They did slow down their scoring in the first quarter, but they had a great strike up the middle. Derek Alexander throws his third touchdown pass of the day, and Auburn wins without any problems with really. They win by 25 there. Meanwhile, we have some other games that are happening around the country, and a lot of good football happening right now. First, let's start with number 13 Arkansas. We have not really seen Arkansas all season long. They'll be taking on Texas A&M, where Texas A&M is still trying to get their bearings on this year. This was a team that went to the Big 12 championship game last season, but I don't know if Texas A&M is going to be able to do that this year unnecessarily. It seems like they've really taken a step back, as Arkansas themselves, they blow the doors off Texas A&M. They win by 40. Now, that being said, we have Oklahoma going up against the Baylor Bears. Baylor just winning their first game of the season. We'll see if they can get their first winning streak as they start to really entrench themselves into conference play. They're coming off their win against Texas Tech, as Oklahoma is up 6-0 already. They did actually miss the extra points so far, but still up 6-0 nonetheless. We'll see if Baylor can respond though, as Les Jordan's going to hand it off to Jonathan Matthews, who finds his way into the end zone. That's a touchdown for Baylor, and they will go ahead and take the first lead of the day. And we're going to build off it as well, as Les Jordan, the junior redshirt, coming in and making some plays as the custom not only finds the end zone, but looks like one of the Oklahoma players does also get down as well, as 21-6 ends up being your score at the moment. But Oklahoma's going to try to roar back as Jermaine Smith gets them into a goal line opportunity, leading into a 1st and goal. Looking, quarterback's going to go ahead and scramble. He's going to cut towards the end zone and fights his way in. Reggie Anderson with the touchdown. We'll see if they go for the 2-point conversion or not. They choose not to. They also get another touchdown off screen. So only down by 2 points, as they do have an opportunity to take the lead before we go into the halftime locker room. We'll see what kind of drive that Reggie Anderson can put together, as this is a throw down the middle and dropped in the bucket for Dante Steffens. Goal line opportunity now, but they don't have any more timeouts. Throws over the middle to Leon Jackson, and the Sooners will indeed take the lead, and they'll have a 26-21 lead into the halftime locker room. But Jumping into that second half of action, though, Oklahoma jumping up on them. But Baylor continues to fight back. They got the home crowd on their side. Les Jordan with a chance to take the lead. Fires, finds his receiver as Les Jordan. He's been having a phenomenal day. Over 400 yards passing. They would like to get this 2-point conversion. They don't. The 2-point conversion is a failure. But Baylor still hangs on to win in an absolute shootout. The Bears win 40-39 in this one. So now we'll go ahead and jump into some of the 1 o'clock games that we have going on. Number 15 LSU going to work, but first we will be jumping in to number 15 LSU taking on a winless Memphis team. LSU trying to bounce back after they did end up losing to Louisiana Tech last week. Louisiana Tech, another team that's in the top 25. So even though they have 2 losses, both of their losses are to top 15 teams. So that's why they're still remaining. But early on out of the gate, it seems like LSU hasn't really came out the most motivated team on the face of the planet. So here we are in the second quarter. The Tigers are only up by 1, but Memphis will have the lead. Memphis is going to take the lead midway through the second quarter. The Tigers are only going to answer back with a field goal of their own. So all of a sudden here, ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a ball game. LSU really sleepwalking through this game as Travell Bankston, the true freshman custom, he gets his 5th reception of the day. He's putting together a good performance, but looking over to the left-hand side, goes back to Travell Bankston. He's been masterful on this particular red zone drive, and we'll see if the Tigers can go ahead and punch it in. Looking over to the right-hand side, targeting Bankston one more time, and he catches it. Travell Bankston gets his first career touchdown as an LSU Tiger. And with less than 3 minutes left to play in this ball game, we're all knotted up at 20. But the last play of the game, Memphis is able to march down the field. They set up for a field goal, and the kick is good. Memphis is going to win the football game. They are going to stun the LSU Tigers at the Liberty Bowl Stadium, host of the AutoZone Liberty Bowl as well. Memphis gets their first win of the year, taking down LSU. Meanwhile, we have the Cy-Hawk rivalry game pitting Iowa State taking on Iowa. This is the battle for the great state of Iowa, as early on Iowa does have a 7-0 lead, and kind of what we expected when 2 Iowa teams get together. It's going to be a little bit more on the defensive side of things, but Iowa is putting together a pretty decent drive. They're going to hand it off to their tailback, who runs right through 2 defenders, actually. Damian Porter finished it with a touchdown next to his name on the score column. So Iowa was dominating this game early, even though the score doesn't necessarily reflect that. But Iowa State, they're not going to give up. They're a solid team in their own right, to be fair. So here we go. Iowa State down by 2 scores. They need this touchdown. They will get the touchdown with Gerard Bush. And Gerard Bush is going to get a few yards and find his way into the end zone as well. But it just seems like Iowa is simply too much. Adam Smith is going to run it in for a touchdown as the Hawkeyes win convincingly for the Cy-Hawk Trophy, winning 35-14 against their hated rivals. But now we jump into a little bit later in the day as we'll see Northwestern kick things off against Notre Dame. Notre Dame, one of those teams that we only expected more out of Notre Dame, especially what they did to Alabama to get things started. But ever since they lost their last couple of games, Northwestern also trying to get their season right. They did blow out Louisville, but other than that, they haven't really done much of substance in here in year number 2. So good opportunity, a good get right game for both teams. It looks like Notre Dame is taking that a little bit more seriously than their Northwestern counterparts, but they do cut it to a 1-possession game with less than a minute left. So unless Notre Dame can drive down the field in less than a minute, we should be looking at a 1-score game. But I mean, Sean Hawkins really hitting that 10 toes down movement. That is a beautiful catch down the sideline. And then a few plays later, got some time, throws over to right inside. He's got a one-but-naked open receiver in Andrew Jackson. Jackson is going to score, and Greg Hunt, he was feeling himself in this first half. 3 touchdown passes in that first half as Notre Dame with a nice little lead. But Northwestern is going to keep themselves in this game as much as possible. Got a quick touchdown there to make it an 8-point game after the extra point. And then this drive right here, they can actually go ahead and tie this thing, depending on what they do on this particular drive. First and goal, chance to tie the game, dropping back, looks over to right-hand side and finds Jermaine Hayford. He's going to score, and now just looking at a 2-point conversion all of a sudden to tie this game up here in South Bend, Indiana, and they get it. They actually get the 2-point conversion. Now all eyes are on the Notre Dame offense. Can we see Notre Dame re-establish the lead? Looks like they're in a good spot to do that themselves, as we got a 3rd and short inside the 5-yard line. A lot of options here down this side of the field, and sure enough, Greg Hunt, he's gonna score. Notre Dame retakes the lead with 3 minutes and 8 seconds left. And now Northwestern, they need a last-minute drive of their own, but it looks like clock is gonna strike 0. Ill-advised decision, and Titus Dunbar, who has played considerably well in this game, well, he turns the ball over at a critical time. And now the Northwestern defense, they're the ones behind the 8 ball, and another long touchdown surrendered to Andrew Jackson, who really has had the Northwestern's defense named today, as Notre Dame, with a big 4th quarter, wins by 2 scores. So we do get our first studio updates of this episode, though, as Oregon narrowly beats San Diego State 35-31. But in other news, defensive battle out in the Dixie State, but Tulane is able to pull it out. They win 14-10 in order to get to 3-2 on this season. The Sun Belt been a very good quality conference so far this year. But how about this? The Warhawks of Louisiana Monroe. They win by 10 against the number 25th ranked Utah Utes. This should be enough to get ULM into the top 25. But I'm sure that's going to depend on some other things happening around the country. We are seeing multiple top 25 teams going into action, but first, we're going to go into the backyard brawl where we have number 18 Pittsburgh. Well, they're taking on the West Virginia Mountaineers. West Virginia, of course, struggling through this early part of the season so far, but Country Roads are working very well thus far today, as got an interception in the red zone, able to make that as much as a 10-point swing. If Pittsburgh could have not turned the ball over, that could have been a touchdown. You know, that's usually what happens when you do get those red zone opportunities. Speaking of those opportunities, West Virginia gets one of their own as they drive within the goal line. Nice little cutback here by Chen Williams, and just like that, West Virginia's got a 10-0 lead and not leaving their foot off the gas pedal anytime soon. Cedric Minor finding a spot in the Pittsburgh secondary as Tom Ostrander throws that strike. And what we are seeing unfold right before our eyes. You know, with this being a rivalry game and West Virginia being at home, I expected this to be a competitive game, even though Pittsburgh is ranked. I did not expect this at all. West Virginia taking it to the Pittsburgh Panthers as Chen Williams almost scores again for the Mountaineers. They could make this a 27-0 lead here late in the 4th quarter, and they will. Chen Williams is going to score, and the Mountaineers, they take down a ranked Pittsburgh squad in the backyard brawl. Bad loss for Pitt. Meanwhile, while that was unfolding right before our eyes, we got Miami, the defending national champions and currently ranked number 5 in the nation. Well, they're going to be wrapping up their non-conference play here shortly. They're taking on the Ohio Bobcats, who are still looking for that first win of the season so far. Jared McBride, keep in mind, he's been having some good runs thus far, averaging 9 yards of carry. He's been a real problem for the Ohio front seven, and so has Casey Carter. Hey, Mr. Carter, how have you been? Casey Carter gonna find the end zone himself. He's going to score, and Miami pouring it on just like the rain is down in southern Florida, as the Miami Hurricanes going to work and showing why they are one of the premium teams in college football, while Ohio's still got a lot of work to do. We'll just put it nicely like that, as Carter throws to the right-hand side. He's going to find Chris Thompson. It sets up yet another goal line opportunity. We'll see if they try to rush it into the end zone this time. They will, but look at this hit. Jerry McBride gets absolutely bamboozled by Greg Walton. And Greg Walton's going to bring him back, makes it a longer goal line chance. But Carter, what a dot to Mark Edwards. My word. The coverage was actually really good, but Miami, they just had the bodies. And Ohio just didn't have the horses to compete. They lose 49-24. With that being said, more action going around the country as Texas takes on Kansas State in an old Big 12 matchup. But in today's college football world, this is a non-conference matchup, as Texas coming in not playing their best football in the first quarter. They do not score in this first quarter at all, and Texas has came in here with one of the best offenses in the country, so that was a surprise. But starting that second quarter, we really start to see the Texas offense really begin to start warming up a little bit. They'll get their first points with literally the first play of the second quarter, but hey, give Kansas State credit. They are hanging around. They're playing a good competitive game. They're looking to get the 3-1 as they're looking to get some momentum going into American Conference play, but Chase Ingram simply not trying to let that happen at all. He's going to find Johnny Branch for a touchdown, and then with 2 minutes left in the second quarter, Ingram drops back. He's got time in the pocket, throws a dime to Walter Sims, and Sims is able to get out of bounds as well. Does save the timeout, so Texas still has all 3 timeouts. Ingram getting pressured by all the Kansas State defenders, but Julian Sanders leaks out at the right time. Just a brilliant play call, and a few plays later sets up this scoring play by none other than Trey Dixon. And the Texas Longhorns take a 21-6 lead into the half, and they do not put that foot off the gas pedal either. Trey Dixon, he really finds his footing in the second half here, as Trey Dixon now raises his yards per carry average up over 5 yards. We'll see if they go back to that running game, which they do, and Trey Dixon rewards him with yet another touchdown on the ground. So that makes it 28-6. And then Ingram, just a little bit of icing on the cake, throws a strike to Landon Curtis for yet another touchdown. Chase Ingram dealing today, and Texas just runs away with it in the second half, winning 55-6 against the Kansas State Wildcats. But we have one of our favorite rivalry games coming up next. We have America's game between the Army and the Naval Academies, and these two teams, they may not like each other very much on the field, but when they graduate from these academies, they will be serving on that same team in the U.S. military. But for now, we get back to the action on the field, as Army actually does come in ranked number 21 in the country. Navy started off as top 25 team, but have not re-entered the top 25 polls, and for good reason, since their loss to SMU. And kind of what we expected in these types of games, when you have two military academies go up against each other. It's a bruiser so far, but Army actually goes into the trick play bag as they do this thing called passing the ball, and David Kinnery is going to get the reception there, picks up the first down. So Army's putting together a solid drive. They still have a couple of timeouts to work with too, as Army going back to that pass yet again, but throwing to the right-hand side, but is intercepted. He's picked off by Sean Merriman, and it keeps the Naval shutout alive. But we'll see if Navy wants to be aggressive, and they actually try to throw over the middle. That's a first down. So maybe Navy will be a little bit more aggressive. They go into their no huddle. One of the last plays of the first half. Fires to the right-hand side. That's another first down. They're at midfield. They could try for a Hail Mary if they want to. Last play of the first half. Firing! Oh, he had a guy, but didn't put enough air under it. So Army's going to get the interception, as that is going to finish the first half. And Harper getting that interception, by the way. But we'll jump into the fourth quarter. Nothing crazy happening unless you count the Army safety, but we didn't catch those highlights on screen. So Navy is up 7-2 going into the final quarter of action, but looks like Army they might be finally ready to put some points on the board with their offense. How about that throw? Throwing across his body, finds Ryan Morton in the end zone, and they'll go for the 2-point conversion too. Make this a field goal game, because then just one play would give them a chance to win it no matter where they are on the field. But unfortunately, they do not get that 2-point conversion. So Navy has a chance to take the lead with a field goal with less than a minute left in the game, and Navy gets the field goal. They actually get the field goal. They take the lead, and Army, well, they turn the ball over on down. So all Navy's got to do is run out the clock. They're going to do more than take out the clock. Willie Hicks is going to score. Maybe not the most sportsmanlike play, but that's why you play into the final whistle, though. Navy beats Army 17-8 as they're well on their way to win the Commander's Cup. But now we got another studio update coming in. And how about Nebraska in a fight for their lives against Bowling Green? The FCS transfer from Sam Houston State, Kyle Paschal, he had a heck of a game as he nearly helps the upset. Meanwhile, Temple's off to a good start this year. They get to 3-1 after a 38-14 win over Colorado. So now we get to the 7 o'clock game, and the only 7 o'clock game that we have is TCU taking on the SMU Mustangs. TCU still looking for their first win, and they're looking to get it in this Iron Skillet rivalry game. Basically, two of the college football teams that are in the city of Dallas, of all things. But that being said, TCU with a short lead, as I'm sure the defensive coordinator Jake Jacobs, who not only one of your custom coaches, but actually comes over from that Temple team last year. Well, that TCU squad is, looking to try to right things around in a tougher conference than maybe what Temple could have been in. But that being said, Maurice McConnell, he's going to help TCU build the lead up 10-0. With a minute left in the first half, SMU is finally going to get on the board as Gary O'Neal, he's going to slice and dice his way into the end zone. SMU pulls within 3 points. But then in the second half, TCU's offense starts to find that groove that we started to see in the second quarter as Maurice Cleveland is there to make the reception there. He's a transfer from Sacramento State. Before Maurice McConnell finishes the job. Touchdown for the TCU Horned Frogs in that one. So back to a 10-point game. But SMU is looking to respond though. Looks to the right hand side and finds an open receiver in Kevin Walker. Just an easy throw for Derek Ford to make. And we're now in to those crucial moments late in the third quarter. TCU looking for their first win. Will they be able to take home the Iron Skillet? We'll see what these following drives have in store for us as Gary O'Neal takes the carry up the left-hand side, tries to get to the sideline. He's pushed out of bounds, but almost getting that first down as well. It's going to be a 3rd and inches, which they will convert a couple of plays later before Gary O'Neal once again. He finishes the job for SMU, and SMU will take the lead. As the TCU looking to do the same. Can they score? And they do with Maurice McConnell. He scores for the TCU Horned Frogs. And from that point on, TCU never looked back. They get their first win of the year and also bring home the Iron Skillet. So again, more studio updates rolling in hot and heavy. And how about this Rice Owls team, man? Rice winning 45-24 as they're 4-0. Rice definitely should be ranked higher than where they are right now as they're put together an impressive start to the season. But in terms of other studio updates, we got UTSA in a shootout with Texas Tech, but the Roadrunners, well, they are going to survive this shootout. They win 42-35. And then another studio update coming in. This is Houston taking on Texas State, and what we typically don't see in the state of Texas is defensive games, but Houston wins by a field goal to get the 3-1. But a lot more games happening around the country. The action simply not going to stop. 4 top 25 teams in action at the 8 p.m. start time. But we'll start with a battle in Georgia. The Georgia Bulldogs taking on the Georgia State Panthers. As Georgia State, with their offensive coordinator, Josephine Krakowski, a former FCS running back when Georgia Southern was at the FCS. Well, he's a coach now here at the FBS level, but still looking for his first win of his college career as the offensive coordinator for this Panthers squad. But Georgia is going to be no small task. We all know how good Georgia has been. They have, at least on paper, one of the best teams in college football. So Georgia State will need to bring their A+ game if they want to have any chance of taking down this Georgia team. But Georgia, we've expected this in this game. They have the lead in the second quarter. I don't think anybody is necessarily shocked by it. But midway through the second quarter, though, a chance to extend the lead, throws it underneath for Adam Williams. And Adam Williams will pick up the first down for the Georgia Bulldogs, as they now have it still 10-6 here with a goal line opportunity. Dropping back, looks over the middle of the field, got a receiver, and Zach Grigsby, he's going to score. Georgia extends their lead, 17-13 now being the score, as we jump into the third quarter of action, trying to really slam the door on this Georgia State squad, you know, kind of letting them hang around a little bit too long. Maybe this is the dagger, but on this day, Georgia State refusing to quit. 3:40 left to play. They set up the halfback screen, fighting for the first down, and Georgia State gets it. They get the first down, and we're now looking at a goal line opportunity. First and goal. Dropping back. No, it's a run. Run up the right-hand side. Almost getting that corner. Michael Taylor was literally this close to breaking that in for a touchdown. He already has one in this game. The only touchdown for Georgia State. But it won't take too long to find that end zone. Scott Davis getting the job done himself. And all of a sudden, Georgia State, they get this 2-point conversion. It's a 3-point game. And they do. Michael Taylor pushes it in. So now just a field goal difference. 24-21. And Georgia State, could they do the unthinkable? They got the stop on Georgia. So the ball is in their hands. They need at least a field goal. But I'm sure they're thinking touchdown. Dropping back. He's going to actually run downfield. Actually got some space on the outside. Breaks the tackle before Scott Davis slides down for a gain of 14. And sensing the urgency, sensing that Georgia is off balance, they're going to go no huddle. And look at this. Michael Taylor breaks it for 12. Another first down for Georgia State. And the Georgia State Panthers, they're going no huddle again. First and goal. Dropping back, fires! Andre Payne scores! Giving Georgia State the lead. The New Hampshire transfer gives the Panthers the lead. And all they got to do, get one stop. Can the Georgia Bulldogs be upset here tonight? Well, this Georgia team, they got some fight too. Peterson, the FCS transfer from Sacramento State, he gets a nice gain. And then the next play, look at this throw. Who was there to cover that guy? Antonio Paris was just all by himself, and Georgia gets lucky. They are going to survive against Georgia State, but man, was it close though. Meanwhile, Ohio State takes on the Wisconsin Badgers, and last year this game came down to a field goal, so we'll see if Wisconsin can get over that final hurdle and finally take down the Ohio State Buckeyes. But Ohio State coming with a different purpose this year. They revamped some things on offense, and you know, first game was tough because it was certainly a transition game for Ohio State, but I mean, look at what we've been able to do with this Ohio State squad. Brian Britt's going to score But give Wisconsin credit, they're hanging in there for now. But second half, though, Ohio State really takes their offense. That's already a pretty good offense, brings it up to another gear. If they get one touchdown already, and then not too long after, could be looking at a second touchdown right here, trying to get to the outside. Gets hit by Andrew Bush, but Andrew Bush picking up a gain of 7. A solid little run there. Would have liked to see him cut up field a little bit more. Is now 2nd and 3 coming up. Is there going to be another run? This time it's one of the wide receivers getting involved. It's Brandon Burks who punches it in. Another score for the Buckeyes, who already have 14 points in the quarter. Make that 21! 21 points in the 3rd quarter as Brooke Hicks throws it up and his receiver mossing 2 defenders. And I think it's safe to say that it was meant to be that Ohio State was meant to win this game. Now, as for the USC Trojans, they are on the road in conference play. One of the best conferences in the country, actually, even with the geographical realignments. They're taking on this Oregon State team. Oregon State, a solid team. They're 2-2, but Jack Jones are going to list that he got the touchdown. He actually did not get it in. He's going to be marked down at the 1-inch line, but give credit to the Oregon State Beavers. They create some push in the trenches in order to take an early lead on the USC Trojans, who do come in ranked number 2 in the country. But USC's got its fair share of weapons as well. They'll punch the ball in towards the end of the 1st quarter. But it'll be the Oregon State Beavers that will be carrying a lead through the end of the 1st quarter. They can keep that up the whole game. They have a shot to win this thing. Meanwhile, first plays of the 2nd quarter. Ben Scott, he's going to run it himself. Could almost got it into the end zone there. Ben Scott gets that goal line opportunity. But can USC finish the drive? They go again with the speed option to the left-hand side. And Ben Scott, he's going to score. Touchdown, USC. And the USC Trojans will go into the locker room with a 1-point lead. USC has the lead, but Oregon State, they're giving them everything they can possibly handle. This could be a freeze point moment for the Oregon State Beavers if they can match the energy of USC, but unfortunately, not meant to be. USC does hang on and win by 7. But now we're going to check in on the Penn State Nittany Lions for the very first time this year. Haven't had a chance to watch Penn State yet, even though they're ranked in the top 15. Well, they will be opening up conference play against Maryland. And Maryland, they got that Chris Carlton. Chris Carlton was him in that game last week against West Virginia. Biggest reason why Maryland ended up winning in that particular shootout. But Penn State is a little bit better, so Maryland will have to rise to the occasion. And right now, it seems like we're not sure if Maryland is actually ready or not to meet that standard to play one of the best teams in Conference USA. This is the northeastern part of the country where all of the teams from the northeast are gathered together. But 2nd and goal, though, for Maryland as the Terps are going to drop back. Fires over the middle to Lance Thompson. That will be a touchdown for the Maryland Terrapins. So a 10-7 lead ensues. But Chris Carlton, he stays humble. He stays poised. And Carlton using that running ability of his to set his guys up to possibly tie the game before we go into halftime. We'll see if Carlton can keep that up. As Carlton, again, gonna scramble. Look at all of his space that he has. I mean, if they're gonna play back on him like that, they are worried about Carlton's arm. I mean, unfair to say, because he had 5 total touchdowns in the last game. But with the legs, he's more than capable of getting it done. But now that things open a little bit up with the passing game, somehow Michael Garcia remains up there the whole time. I thought he went down earlier, but I guess he found a way to sneak a couple of extra yards before 2nd and goal. Chris Carlton, he's going to do it. He's going to punch it into the end zone, and the Maryland Terrapins, they'll have a lead going into the half. And not only have a lead, they'll extend on that lead as well as Carlton keeps it himself on the read option. He'll punch it in, and Happy Valley just absolutely shocked right now. They are really not comprehending what they are seeing right in front of their eyes right now. But Penn State down 21-13 going into the final quarter, and you would think in the 4th quarter we would see this Penn State team be a little bit more aggressive, but they end up settling for field goals instead of trying to go for it on 4th down. Well, that's a bold strategy for Colin to trust the defense, and I don't think that was the right move, all things considered. Now Penn State needs to drive down the field, less than 2 minutes left, in order to remain undefeated on the year. But I don't know the fat lady is singing, but she's certainly warming up the vocals right now, and Maryland wins. Maryland beats Penn State 28-23, and the Terrapins, they're making some noise. So before we get into the last game, we do have some more studio updates as Kentucky beats Florida 31-24 in what was a very contested game. Kentucky's only loss being against Louisville, ironically, but UTEP did get the chance also to play against Georgia Tech, and UTEP actually beats Georgia Tech 31-17 as well. But then, to round out their studio updates, this one was a doozy. A back and forth affair as USF almost nicked the North Carolina Tar Heels, but North Carolina, they go for the 2-point conversion. They showed some cojones, and they actually get it to win. So now we jump into the final game that we have in this episode. The only top 25 matchup that we actually had here in week number 5. We have Ole Miss taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide as the Ole Miss Rebels. They come in ranked in the top 10 in the country. They come in ranked number 9. Alabama did a good job answering back after their loss to Notre Dame in the kickoff opener. Well, they started off 2 straight wins since then. They're back in the top 25 because of that. But this Ole Miss team is going to be the best team that Alabama has faced thus far in the season. So, certainly going to be a challenge to contain this Ole Miss team. They're going to need Curtis West if they want to have any shot of beating the Ole Miss Rebels, in which Curtis West comes out ready to play. Gets it out to James Robinson, does a beautiful job holding on to the ball until the very last possible moment that you could get rid of the ball. Curtis West does exactly that, and we got an interesting game here. Hopefully that could get Bryant-Denny Stadium turned up and ready to go, but this is not the Alabama team that you've seen in the Dynasty days. This is a diminished version of Alabama. Granted, they still have some talented guys for sure, as Curtis West makes a critical error, fires it into the red zone, but a red zone interception by Dale Sanders. And now Ole Miss has a chance to extend their lead. 4 minutes left. Dropping back. No, it's an option. And his quarterback's going to take off. It's Eric Archie with a 20-yard run right in the heart of the Alabama defense. And they'll go to that read option because, hey, if it's not broke, why fix it? Tony Britt this time does get the carry, and Ole Miss will extend their lead once more. But that's not the only thing that happens in the first half. Alabama goes 3 and out. So Ole Miss has the ball yet again. Oh, but he underfroze him. Eric Archie had a man open and underfroze his receiver. Yo, you hate to see it. If you're an Ole Miss guy, you're rooting for Ole Miss. Like, he had him. He had a touchdown right there, but a critical underthrow gives Alabama the chance to get the turnover, make that happen, but Alabama unfortunately could not do anything with it, so Ole Miss has the ball yet again, and this time Archie makes up for the previous error. Lewis Kelly in the back of the end zone. Look at this window that Eric Archie has. That takes some cojones to throw this ball, and Ole Miss, they went to work today. They took it to their rivals Alabama, winning 34-14 in the only top 25 game. But after that top 25 matchup, to wrap up the action that we saw in week number 5, we will take a minute to look around the country to see what other notable scores happen around the nation. We start in Troy, Alabama, where the Troy Trojans played up against the Ragin' Cajuns, as the Ragin' Cajuns were starting conference play up. However, the Ragin' Cajuns came ready to play as they blow out the Troy Trojans 45-13. Not a great time for offensive coordinator JD Weeks, who is one of your guys' custom coaches. But how about the work that George Gentry has been doing with that Hawaii offense as Hawaii does the unthinkable. They beat the California Bears 31-30, a huge upset that hopefully gets Hawaii top 25 consideration down the road. As for the Hokies of Virginia Tech, they will be welcoming themselves into the top 25. They are now on a 4-0 start to begin year number 2. They beat South Carolina in overtime 37-34, as they actually needed overtime in order to get the job done. But welcome to the top 25, Virginia Tech. Speaking of those Techs, Louisiana Tech went outside of conference play in order to take on the Eagles of Eastern Michigan. And Louisiana Tech is continuing to roll. They win 42-17 against this EMU Eagles squad, and Louisiana Tech now firmly entrenches themselves into the top 10. They are looking very good here in the first half of the season. As for UCLA, they prove why they are the #1 team in college football as they take down Washington State, who was having a good non-conference schedule slate. Washington State falls short, losing 45-24 against the #1 team in the nation. But the Miami Hurricanes aren't the only Miami team that is playing extremely well this season. The Miami Redhawks continue to play some high-end football as they win 52-17, as the Redhawks are now 3-1 going into conference play. Meanwhile, the Michigan Wolverines started their conference play against the Toledo Rockets, but the Rockets have been grounded as Michigan wins 44-28. Toledo still looking for their first win of the season, while Michigan improves to 3-1 on the year. As for the Washington Huskies, they get back on track as they finally get their first win in conference play. It is against the Stanford Cardinal, really taking that frustration out on Stanford as they win 51-13. It was never even close since the start of kickoff. So look out at what the top 25 is looking like right now. We do have some change at the top here in week number 6. Ohio State, for example, they had a good win against Wisconsin. They're rewarded by moving up 2 spots and jumping over Miami to do that. Miami still remains at number 5, even with the blowout against the Ohio Bobcats. As for the rest of the top 10, we do have a new top 10 team. The Michigan State Spartans jump up to number 10. They were actually on bye. As for outside of the top 10, I should say, Arkansas moves up a couple spots to number 11. They did blow out Texas A&M. Washington, we saw what they did to Stanford. They're up a couple of spots as well. California losing to the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. They fall 10 spots because of that, and it doesn't get any easier. They go up against UCLA in the next episode. Auburn moves up a couple spots. They had a good win against the Kansas Jayhawks. Oregon moves up a couple spots as well. North Carolina moves up 3 spots, as does the Tulane Green Wave, both in close games. Meanwhile, Syracuse was on bye this week, but they move up 4 spots. We'll see them against Oregon in what should be a good non-conference game. As for the rest of the top 25, we got Rice at number 19. They're at 4-0 on this season. Texas hops into the top 25. Penn State is still hanging around even with the loss to Maryland. Virginia Tech is also in here as well at number 22. Bama stays at number 23 even with a not even close game against Ole Miss. I'm surprised Alabama is allowed to stay. Army is at number 24. They only fall a few spots. And then Navy actually does jump into the top 25. They are number 25 in the entire country. So that wraps up the action here in week number 5. And guys, we are closing in on that halfway point. We've certainly had our fair share of surprises and our fair share of disappointments as well. And I'm sure we're going to continue to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of the NCSL as we progress through year number 2. So it's been a fun season here, one that's had more scoring than what we witnessed here in year number 1. So I hope you have been enjoying that, and if that is certainly the case, make sure you go ahead, smash that like button for me, as that does get this out to more college football folks like yourself watching this right now. Hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new. But this is John J. Gaming on the mic signing off, but hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.